Aloha! Here we are. Beautiful B-boys at it again. My name is Joey.
I'm Shane. This is our second official podcast, and we're happy to have you.
Last week we were talking about programming as human beings, what kind of program we're subjected to, and the process of deprogramming and reprogramming. And we also talked about coming up with some sort of name for what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I thought of B-programming.
B-programming. Instead of reprogramming, we're B-programming. First off, can everybody hear us okay? Do either one of us need to speak up? How's it sounding so far? Are the vibration of the bees getting in the way of hearing us?
We'll monitor that if anybody has anything to say.
Yeah.
We got a thumbs up.
All right, good.
Cool. So I picked up this book. It fell into my awareness. This is personal mythology. It's called Using Ritual, Dreams, and Imagination to Discover Your Inner Story. It's by David Feinstein, PhD, and Stanley Krippner, PhD.
Is that Feinstein or Feinstein?
Feinstein, S-T-E-I-N.
Bernstein.
David Feinstein, Dr. David Feinstein, and Dr. Stanley Krippner. And it was very synchronistic because they are talking a lot about that same concept of programming, but using different terminology rather than the more technological term of programming. They use a term that I kind of prefer personally, which is mythology. We're talking about stories and operating, falling into roles within those stories. So I thought I'd share a couple of little paragraphs in here to kind of get this ball rolling today. Personal myths structure our awareness and point us in the direction that becomes our path. If we are unacquainted with the contents of our personal mythology, we're carried by it unconsciously, with the result that we confuse what exists objectively in the world with the image of the world supplied to us by our own distorted lenses. Based on an unconscious personal mythology, or a mythology rigidly imposed by our social group, we tend to see only one correct path. We do not see it as our way, but as the way, and we do not see that it could lead to disaster as easily as to contentment.
So, if you would, just give me your breakdown, your version of what that paragraph is that you just read.
All right, so I start thinking about us as we're energy systems operating within a more collective energy system. And to go back to the programming language, we've got this computer system, if you want to use the technological model, and we require some form of program to run, just to operate in the world.
Yeah.
And so going back to the mythology language, we need a story. We're thrown into a story that's already in progress.
Yeah.
And so we adopt the stories of our ancestors just to function. When we're babies, we look at the world around us and we look at models. We look at the figures in our world who are the primary models of behaving, and we got to learn how to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves and everything.
Well, how do we learn to take care of ourselves and our energy from others?
We're just absorbing it before we even use symbols and language and words, we're absorbing it energetically.
Yes. Yeah, so it's sometimes...
We're tuning forks, remember?
We are tuning forks. Yeah, there we go back to the chitin. It always comes back to the bees. The bees' body's made of chitin, and Joey here has labeled it harmony armor, and I really love that. It's so true. It's so easy for one to fall into someone else's frequency, someone else's vibration, whether it be a positive one or a negative one. So since it's really easy, then why not just take the approach that your vibration is the one that's light. Your vibration is the one that's love. Your vibration is the one that's contagious. And understanding that the programming or the mythology is at any moment you are in charge of that. Every moment you are in charge of that. You can choose one thing without being predetermined or predestined to have things go a certain way. You know, everything is a choice. This mythology that we've been given, you can change it at any time.
I think a really prime example of that is, okay, there's this story that I've operated under most of my life, is that bees can be dangerous.
Yeah.
And they will sting you. So by working up close and personal with bees, as you can see, we're among them very closely. If I walk into this scene and I'm running that program or just playing a role in that story, that mythology, that I'm afraid that these bees are going to sting me. I'm giving off that vibration of fear. I'm giving off chemical signals that they are picking up on, and in that sense, I'm choosing that storyline, and I'm stepping into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's most likely I'm going to get stung.
You're also creating an opportunity for yourself to be a victim.
Exactly.
So wherein lies the opportunity for you to be a victim also lies an opportunity for somebody to have control over you. And it's not true. It's not fucking true. Unless you give somebody the control, well, you always have control of yourself. Your emotions, your feelings, everything. Who do you choose to give your love to? You know, like, words are really powerful too. You know, like, you could say, that guy pissed me off. That guy made me mad. What he did sent me reeling. Be careful. Be careful with your words, because you just made that true. And you gave that person power over you. And now you're creating a mythology. Maybe this might repeat itself. You start to feel victim to, let's say you're having a hard time falling in love or finding a partner. And you just buy into that story. And every person you meet, quote unquote, fails you. Now you are a victim of not being able to find a partner or fall in love like you want to fall in love. So here you find yourself alienating yourself and falling victim in a loveless world.
That's the lens you're looking through.
That's the lens you're choosing.
Continue on with that, there's one more little paragraph from personal mythology here I'd like to share. Through your personal mythology, you interpret the experience of your senses, give order to new information, find inspiration and direction, and orient yourself to powers in the universe that are beyond your understanding. Without your mythology, your experiences would be disjointed and chaotic. Myths, in this broader sense, are not properly understood as being true or false, right or wrong. They are ways of organizing experience that may ultimately be judged as more or less effective for the well-being and performance of an individual or a group. So the last sentence of both those paragraphs, you know, is my self-fulfilling prophecy going to lead to disaster or contentment? Am I going to do damage, or am I going to learn to give and receive love more skillfully in my in my world? You know, is my story effective in reaching towards what I want in this existence? Or am I just leaving a wake of suffering and chaos, you know? Just sort of blindingly running the story.
Hold on, time out. So I just started daydreaming. I don't know if they caught that on film, but while you were talking about that, I started going into story in my head, like playing out this whole story, and then whack, stung.
That's the Zen master.
Yeah. And that is what this thing is for, to bring you back to the present moment. You know, it's not this. It's kind of like the idea of getting smacked. You know,
it's
like
tough love.
Yeah. your mama smacks the shit out of you. You know, you're in the grocery store talking, I want this, and you're lost and you're stuck on having that. And just whack.
We just came here for shoes. Stop getting distracted by candy and toys.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think that ties right into. I mean, we're working with the bees, and it's a nudge. Like, are you working with us, or are you working on your own personal illusion of individuality?
Are you dictating what's happening here, or are we working together? Is this a really beautiful flow of energetics? Because if you're trying to dictate everything and forcing one thing and forcing another, are you really feeling this divine flow? Are you trying to control or manipulate the situation? Because if you are, the pain has to come. The reminder that you are not in control. The only thing that you appear to have control of is yourself.
So that you said divine flow, and I'm starting to think about we have a collective mythology that has sent our culture on. It seems to me to be, it's like a collision course, or this, a lot of people see disaster in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe they're choosing to see that, but there's a lot of evidence. It goes into the mythology of the bees are disappearing, the bees are dying.
Right.
Because maybe we're reflecting off our species. Our species is seeing where we're going.
Right.
And
it appears as though from one perspective that things are going horribly. The bees are dying and disappearing. But to me, that's just one possible storyline.
So there's that divine flow that you're talking about. And I look to the bees and what they're doing as being very much in alignment with that. So in that sense, they're teachers. And for a member of a species that seems to have lost its way, or has been playing a role that is not in alignment with these just natural forces that are bigger than us, that are mysterious, I find a lot of just comfort in knowing that there are teachers out there like bees that will very simply and directly help to guide us back into alignment.
But if you're in a place of fear, what's going to happen? You're reacting, right? And reacting in a place of fear, I think we have all learned that does not serve you.
Doing it from a place, rather than seeing catastrophe and chaos in the future and changing my ways out of fear, maybe a better stance is I'm going to change my ways because it feels good and because I love it.
Right. Because maybe this path that I currently find myself in looks like it might not be heading in a very healthy direction. So maybe I could try something a little bit different. Maybe I'm just open to the idea that I don't know the only way. That something that could potentially be mindless, the mythology. I was taught to work with bees in a certain way. I was taught to give them chemicals. I was taught to feed them antibiotics, and I have since discovered that is not the only way. And thank God that I stumbled across that. And the only way that I feel that I was able to stumble across that is to have an open mind, to have this idea that the mythology that I've been given isn't the only way. There is a possibility for something else. So even though I might feel very good about something, about a path that I'm on, a way that I'm doing things, Joey presents things to me every day, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm open to that. Thank you.
So you have a different approach to beekeeping these days than back then.
Yeah, a lot.
And something that came up in my mind this week too was, I was talking about getting more in alignment with natural forces, natural. I just got stung in the elbow. I started thinking about some, classic elemental forces: earth, water, air, fire, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was thinking of examples of each of those that we use,
Right.
that you've been teaching me. I was thinking about the earth element being represented by the Korean natural farming
Yes.
solutions.
Yes.
Maybe you can just sort of explain a little bit about how that fits in.
Well, it's very spiritual for me. However, the grounding aspect too, knowing that the microbes in the soil make up such a magnificent part of my daily, well, just everything. The microbes are making love constantly, and how can I feed them, and how can I allow them to feed me? And I'm being nourished thanks to the microbes, thanks to the bees, thanks to the plants, thanks to everything. So Korean natural farming really ties together that aspect of spiritually connecting with what you're doing, with growing food, with your way of living, really.
So that was what came up when I thought of the earth elemental force. And then water, we talked a little bit last time about structured water.
Structured water,
So
another
that's a tool.
Yeah, another tool, another big part of Korean natural farming, magically.
And yeah, we can go more into structured water. I think it's going to be a theme in this process here. And then third, we have air. And when I thought about that, I was filming these bees at the entrance of the hive, and you started telling me they're all flapping their wings. A lot of them are in a formation, just flapping along.
Yeah, and we might be able to, if I were to zoom in, you could probably see it, but I don't want to go through that right now. But they're all lined up here, but they're also lined up through the entire hive. Starting on the exterior. Well, actually, you don't even know where they're starting. There is no start and there is no end to this stream of air that they're creating that circulates through this entire hive, that is doing multiple things. One, it's spreading the pheromone of the queen. Two, it's quote unquote cooking the nectar, making it honey. And then what I feel is the most important thing is controlling the temperature, keeping it completely even all throughout the hive. And
It's hot in there.
yeah, it can get hot in there. And the cool thing is if you, I don't know, I'm just saying, maybe somebody takes psychedelics every once in a while and eats some mushrooms and sits down in front of the hive, they might be able to see this actual line in the sky.
It's a wind tunnel.
It's a wind tunnel.
So aside from being able to ride on the wind with that gift of flight that these bees have, they're actually able to manipulate, to control wind currents to their benefit.
Yes.
So that's a tool.
Yeah, so we got earth, wind, or earth, air, and water.
And then fire, you were showing our friend Emily how to use her smoker
right
yesterday. So what's the function of a smoker?
Well, you could look at it as it's just a function for the bees, but I look at it as if it's actually just a function for me. It's a ritual, it's a routine, it's kind of like chanting, it's kind of like meditation. I light my smoker, I grab things from the direct area. And originally I was thinking I was grabbing this stuff from the direct area so the bees were familiar with it. Oh, something's on fire? Oh, it's the palm tree that's right next to me that's on fire. And you're almost tricking them in a sense. You're making them think that there's a fire and they have to gorge on honey, and a fat bee is a happy bee. So they're not necessarily concerned with me. But anyway, the main purpose that I've discovered is to get rid of the energy. So I'm lighting that smoker and I'm smoking myself. I even turn the smoker in my direction, get underneath my arms, get in all my sensitive areas that I might be bringing some energy from earlier today that I'm carrying with me, and now I'm letting it go. I kind of like saging the room. But in this particular case, I'm just using smoke of any kind, and I'm clearing my energy.
And it also helps with calming them down, right? They go into a mode.
They think there's a fire, and instead of panicking, they're going to gorge on honey. They're going to gorge on nectar, And like I said, a happy bee is a fat bee.
And we're less likely to be stung when they're in that mode.
Right,
so it's a tool in being able to more smoothly enter their world.
Right.
Open up the womb, like you were describing. It's like a C-section or something's going on when we pull the lid off of that.
Yeah, when we open this hive, I mean, imagine it's controlled temperature at all times. It's dark. Its life source is all right inside there. Only a third of the hive is out working. Everybody else in there is in there making love right now with each other, and not in the sense of what you might think when I say that, but they're feeding each other, they're grooming each other. That's the love that I'm talking about. That's what they're experiencing inside there, and here we are just ripping the cover off. No.
It's traumatizing, like an alien autopsy, you might compare it to.
Right, so, and I don't even bring smoke into the hive. I walk up to, after I smoke myself and everyone around me, I smoke the bees that are hanging out here. And these bees then pass on the message. I don't want to burden them and disrupt them so much by just smoking the shit out of the inside of the hive and displacing all the bees, moving them around. Now you're getting back to agitating them again.
So we're harnessing the power of fire
Yes.
to work with them. And so the fifth element that I'm bringing into it is just spirit element. It's like there were some mysterious forces at work that brought me into this world of bees. I didn't plan to be a beekeeper or to learn this, but I feel like almost like a spiritual duty to see it out and follow it through, and continue to work with them. And what a lot of what keeps coming up is a sense of community and a sense of purpose through just the force of love. Really, you said they're in there the majority of the hive is in there making love to each other, and that's not necessarily mating. The queen will take one mating flight, right?
Right.
Where she's actually mating, which they're making love in that process too, right?
Right.
And so when they're cleaning each other, they're feeding each other. What else are they doing?
Well, they're out pollinating pretty much all day long. If they're outside of the hive, they're making love to the flowers.
So like every function and job that a bee is performing is, you could say that's making love.
That's making love.
Cleaning is making love.
Yeah.
Building a home for your family.
It's making love.
You know, everything. We could write down all the different examples. So reflecting off of the bees, I start seeing that they're utilizing all of these elemental tools in their external world for that one purpose, really.
Yeah. It's all for that one purpose, to make love. I mean, and that's what the bees have taught me, and I continue to be reminded of that on a regular basis. Like if I'm not making love, what am I doing it for?
And it's a cyclical process, you know. So I start thinking about mythology again, and there's this let's call it like an economic mythology that our culture for a few generations now have been focused on a story about unbridled economic growth, you know, and just process the resources, growth, profit, all this. And that's not a cyclical story. That's like that's a trajectory.
Yes.
With no real thought about, you know, where that's going to lead us, because it's not leading back around. It's not a sustainable.
No, it's not a full circle
story.
Process either.
So then I started thinking about, okay, the bee's body is this ultimate tool. They've got antenna, they've got wings, they've got their proboscis, and all these things that they're using for tons of different stuff. The wings aren't just for flying.
Right.
You know, the antenna are doing, I'm sure, all sorts of sensory functions.
Yeah.
And so what do we have? We have hands, which are kind of like this ultimate tool building tool, and they're hypersensitive. We've got all of our conventional senses that we talk about physically, and we've got, I think maybe it's an electromagnetic sort of sense. Some of us have extras, or tapped into some extra senses that enable us to feel more deeply. Maybe we're empaths, maybe we're psychic, maybe we're, you know,
you're getting into the chakra system too.
Yeah, all of the above. So what's the point of all of these tools and what are we using them for? If you look at it, if I reflect on what the bees are doing in their systems as individuals and as a hive, it makes me see the similarity. We're doing all of this for love.
We are.
And this comes back to a question which we were talking about the other day. You said, we're talking about sex and love. And having sex is not love. Someone
Well, a lot of people propose that idea that stop saying that sex is love.
Well, the queen goes on her mating flight where she is having sex.
Yeah.
And we just discussed, you consider that making love.
I consider it making love, in the very direct sense of the saying making love.
So for us too, I mean, we're using our tools and the things that we're, collecting in our external world, and we're processing it, we're bringing it back, we're turning it into different forms of energy. But what is the end goal in all of this?
Right.
Is it just self-satisfaction,
right,
or is it just the collection of piles of stuff that'll make us happy, or is it going to feed back into this love system, which is truly what feeds us?
Well, it's personally. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it's personally what works for me. It's what fuels me. I hardly ever feel satisfied. However, I don't focus on being in a place of a lack of satisfaction. It's just that there's this internal hunger within me that I am constantly being fueled by with love. And if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, if I'm loving what I'm doing, so it's a noun, a verb, an adjective. Love is everything. Mm-hmm. And I energetically, especially, I feel invigorated. I feel that insatiable or this idea of satisfaction, it's constant. It's just there's never an end to it. There's never a beginning to it. It's just a constant idea of making love. It's this feeling that I feel deep within inside me. And sometimes it shows up in the form of actually fornicating people. And it's okay.
Well, compared to this too, it's like if you're making dinner for your loved ones, your family, are you just cooking food, or are you making love?
Right. Do you want your family or whoever you're cooking for to taste the love in your food? You're damn right.
If you're going to work at a job, whether you like the job or not, you're going there to support yourself, to support your family. Right?
You're doing it in the name of love for your family.
Are you making love?
Right.
And so all of a sudden things start to break down in my mind, and there's more of a sense of purpose, and there's more of a story that I can feel is in alignment with more powerful natural systems, and they don't have to totally make sense to me, because I'm starting to move away from a logical, rational sort of interpretation and more into like a feeling, emotional sense that's being strengthened.
So we got a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, Chandra's been very active, and I love your little jokes. Thank you. Here we go. Yes, here we go. Everything comes back to love, Chandra. That's right. But yeah, we got a couple more minutes. We are also going to put this up on our YouTube channel, and all that stuff is in the workings and everything. But we are filming this on a new camera that Joey got, and yeah. So, did you get one? Mm-hmm. Ow. Mm-hmm. So yeah, as you see, the bees are done too. So
that's our cue.
That's our cue, folks.
Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to be attempting to do this every week. Monday seems to be where we're landing.
Yeah, Monday's the day. So if you enjoy this, spread the word, share it, like it, all that good shit. And then I'll post my YouTube channel here later, and then I think we're going to create another YouTube channel too. But yeah, the bees are done, I think. We love you.
Love you, Shane. Love you again.
Aloha.
Is there a stinger on my eyebrow?
Let's see that. Oh yeah. Shit. Oh, that's a good one. Damn. Look at this guy just taking it. There we go. Got it.
I might be a little swollen tomorrow.
Yeah, that's gonna swell up. That's gonna leave a mark.